Okay na? Good morning. Magandang umaga po. Maayong aga sa tanan, maayong buntag, Pilipinas. Today, we are welcoming you to our program, Coffee Clutch. And this is our maiden broadcast under our channel, Sovereign PH TV 911, and serving you and our great community. Let us have coffee, talk, and exchange and share our views, delivering current events, asking people, especially our officials, our experts in different fields. We will be talking to them, and we will be sharing you this information on this mga issues natin na tinatalakay. With me today is our co-host, Mr. Ado Paglinawan, well-known broadcaster, writer, who writes an article in some dailies, especially at sovereignph.com. Mr. Ado, good morning.
Yeah, this is Ado Paglinawan, ang partner po ni Jing dito sa Coffee Clutch, no? And mixing your favorite coffee brew and the latest issues para makatulong po sa kabuhayan ng sa buhay at kabuhayan ng mga bawat Pilipino. Jing.
Yeah, magandang umaga po uli. Ito po ang inyong host, former Congressman Jing Paras, at kasalukuyan po ay nagtatrabaho sa gobyerno bilang isang undersecretary sa office ng ating Pangulo, at naisip namin na magtatag nitong programa para makatulong din tayo sa information dissemination, no? As we have access to people who makes a difference in our lives, no? Our guest today, we have two guests. One is the first one is Dr. Teodoro Teddyherbosa. He is a special advisor ng National Task Force Against COVID-19, and he had served as Undersecretary of the Department of Health, and is also the concurrent DOH Regional Director for NCR, and concurrent DOH Regional Director for NCR from the period 2010 to 2015. He is a medical doctor, and he has extensive experience in trauma surgery and emergency medicine. One of his milestones is his current leadership in the Physicians for Peace in the country. Ted is the Executive Vice President of the UP system. As early as last year, he offered solutions to avoid resurgence of COVID-19 in order to flatten the curve, and why it is important to keep the people updated and track the unseen enemies. Good morning, Ted.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, USEC Jing, and good morning, Ado Paglinawan. Thank you for inviting me in your maiden episode of this exciting new series, Coffee Clutch. Ang kaso, USEC Jing, wala pa yung kape ko.
Alam mo,
On the way na.
we will send you virtual coffee.
Thank you very much. Yeah, okay na yan. Everything is virtual. Pati itong interview, virtual. Tama.
Ted, by the way, is my fraternity brother at UP under the Upsilon Sigma Phi fraternity. Brad, Ted, can you share with us? We are in a period of pandemic, as everyone knows, and it seems lately there has been spikes of infections, especially in the NCR, and its neighboring provinces. Now, being an insider, one of the advisors to the National Task Force, can you share with us what were the formula or solutions you proffered to the NTF against COVID-19, Dr. Ted?
Okay, the principles of fighting an epidemic or a pandemic are basically simple epidemiologic principles. Yan ang tinatawag nating test, trace, and treat, no? Yung three principles na yan, very important. You must have adequate testing. At if you remember last year, pinapadala pa natin yung samples natin all the way to Melbourne in Australia until we set up one lab, which is the RITM. Pero kulang pa rin siya. So we needed to set up more. Today, we have built over 300 molecular laboratories. So hindi simple yung molecular lab or PCR machine that tests and identify the presence of SARS-CoV-2 virus, no? But we were able to do that. Hinabol natin yan. In fact, we now have more molecular laboratories than Vietnam. Yung Vietnam, tremendous din yung speed nila in the way they built their molecular lab. So unang-una yan, yung testing, no? And we wanted to make it available to everybody, no? The second is, of course, contact tracing. Pag meron kang nakita na infected, kailangan all their close contacts must also be quarantined so that the virus will not spread. So dyan, meron din tayong ginagawa dyan. Nag-hire tayo ng maraming contact tracers at ini-investigate. Tinatawag namin case investigation. From one positive, hahanapin mo yung first level contact, yung kasama sa bahay, yung second level contact, yung mga nasa trabaho, at yung mga nakasama sa sasakyan. Thirdly, of course, is the treat, no? And just the treat, nakita nyo ang ginawa natin, we set up and increased the hospital surge, no? Napupuno yung mga hospital last year sa NCR around this time. And what we did was to build temporary facilities, no? Yung tinatawag nating temporary treatment and monitoring facility para sa mga mild and asymptomatic, para hindi sila lahat pumunta sa ospital. Para yung ospital, maalagaan yung tinatawag nating moderate, severe, at critical. So, nangyari yun, nagawa natin yun last year, and by July, nag-peak tayo, by August, bumaba, October, November, tuloy-tuloy ang pagbaba. November, December, January, February, talagang flat tayo, below 1 yung ating tinatawag na reproduction number. And then itong March, bigla siyang bumulusok. At ang bulusok niya ay doble sa bilis ng bulusok nung last year. So we tried to look at what the cause was. I don't think there was any change in the government efforts. I think the cause was really the variants or the mutation ng virus. And many other countries suffered the same fate. So nag-lockdown din sila sa Europe. Sa America, binilisan nila yung vaccination nila because they already had the vaccines. But for countries like us, wherein we're still waiting for the vaccines, and the vaccines arrive very slowly, we have to go back to that quarantine policy, di ba? Nagbalik tayo sa ECQ, and today nasa MECQ tayo, hoping to open the economy. So, okay yung measures, ano? But the side effect, kumbaga sa gamot, the side effect of these strict lockdowns was a damage to the economy. Madaming nawalan ng trabaho, madaming businesses na nagsara. And we need to recover that as well. Yes, USEC.
Doc Ted, there were talks that medyo behind tayo, no? Medyo behind tayo. I remember you had an interview because I know you also have a program under UP. Mm-hmm. You interviewed the former Secretary of the NEDA,
yes.
Secretary Pernia.
Oh.
Yeah, and he was talking about a holistic approach. And he was talking about, at the time, to set up first all the facilities that will be needed or anticipated in any event that will happen, and it's happening actually right now. And ngayon lang po tayo, it seems that ngayon lang po tayo talagang naghahabol. Now, can you tell us what Secretary Pernia was saying, and has that already been addressed, yung sinasabi niyang holistic approach, or are we really delayed, and are we able to cope up with
Okay,
these current spikes?
ang sinabi ni Pernia, and he wrote it in his book, ang title ng book niya, Virtues in Patience. Apparently, we are in a situation wherein, well, basically our government and the past governments, and I include that because I was a former undersecretary, have underfunded the health system. Actually, yun yung basic problem natin. Now, this virus just exposed all the gaps in the health infrastructure and the health system. Lumabas, di ba, lahat ng mga doktor at nurse natin nag-aalisan for abroad kasi mas mahal ang sweldo nila abroad. Hindi natin sila ma-retain. When was the last time the government built a big hospital? I mean, the national government. You will have to look back all the way to Marcos' time for the last hospital, heart center, kidney center, lung center. After that, no other administration built additional hospital. Yet our population grew. So when a virus or a pandemic comes, because your health system is underfunded, it is fragile. So ang philosophy ni Secretary Pernia, hindi, buhusan natin ng pera ang health system. But the other cabinet secretaries, basically, of course, budget and management and finance, are what they call finance people. So they look at the money as an as an expense. When in fact, Pernia was right. Health is an investment. It is not an expense. Di ba? Kahit tayo in our own family, basta health yan, gagastusan natin yan because health is wealth, di ba? If we invest in the health of our people will become economically productive. So I agree with his principle, and because of those differences, sabi niya nag-resign siya, and you remember last year he resigned because of what he says, differences in development principles, which is he wanted to spend more. Yan.
Dr. Natatanda ko ang usapin noon ay masyadong napag-iwanan ang public hospitals at masyadong nauna at pinaubaya sa private sector yung health infrastructure, kumbaga. The statistics then was very dismal. At nagkaroon po ba during the pandemic, nagkaroon po ba ng pagbabago ito? Nagkaroon po ba ng improvement ito?
Okay, ang health infrastructure doesn't take months or it takes years to actually change. So at that time when the pandemic hit, our hospital system, and I will talk about hospital beds, 54% of our hospital beds were private sector po nagpapatakbo, private hospital, at 46% po ay government. Ang malaking problema natin is 80% of our population ay nagsisiksikan dun sa 46%. At yung 20% na may pera, sila ay maluwag po na pumapasok at lumalabas sa ating mga private hospital that hindi naman ma-afford ng ating ordinary working class. So tama ka, no? At but we built a system that way. We built a public and a private system na together a American model. And even in America, napakamahal ng healthcare because of that model. So in 1992, nagpasa tayo ng batas, 94, nagpasa tayo ng batas, yung National Health Insurance Act. And this act moved us towards the concept of social protection. Yung tinatawag naming Bismarck model, yung socialized healthcare system. That means merong insurance, national health insurance, single party, at yun ay lalagyan natin ng pera natin, at merong ambag doon, at yun ang magbabayad pag nagkasakit ang taong bayan. So unfortunately, for many years, it only funded the working class. So nung panahon ko, nung USEC ako, pinush namin yung sin tax. Napasa yung sin tax, at because the sin tax was passed, mas mataas na buwis sa alcohol at sa tobacco, dumami po ang pera ng healthcare. Na-quintuple po namin yan nung panahon namin. At yung paglaki ng mga public hospital, dahil po yan dyan sa sin tax na yan. So maraming public hospital medyo gumanda, bumango yung banyo, nagbago na yung mga kama, nakabili ng CT scan, nakabili ng x-ray, hindi na siya Mona Lisa Hospital. Naging na siyang mga medyo competitor. In fact, in
They
that
lie
time,
and they die there, Mona
oh,
Lisa.
yung Mona Lisa. Kasi, and when we were improving the public hospitals at that time, in fact, sinabihan ako ng isang private hospital owner, USEC Ted, dahan-dahan ka lang dyan sa pagpapaganda mo sa public hospital. Nalulugi kami. Kasi nga, yung people na dati napipilitan lumipat sa private dahil puno yung public, biglang bumabalik na uli sa public. Kasi sabi nila, mas maganda pa dito. May kwarto, libre pa yung gamot, tapos no balance billing pa. So, medyo nag-uumpisa na no? And then last 2019, napasa nga yung Universal Healthcare Law. So happy ako. Uy, may Universal Healthcare Law na. So tuloy-tuloy na. Ang laki ng batas. It's a framework law on what. But unfortunately, passing a law is not that simple. It's not the answer. Building the healthcare capacity or the supply to meet the demand was more important.
Most of all, funding. The funding
exactly.
that will
So at least yung
that
funding nandoon na. Pero nagkagulo-gulo kasi nagkaroon tayo ng mga problema sa PhilHealth, di ba? Nagkaroon tayo ng problema sa mga pera ng DOH kung saan ginamit, kung anong bakuna, kung anong mga dental bus, di ba, etc. So nagkaroon tayo ng mga misappropriations then of that money if we invested all of those in molecular labs. And in fact, that was my project. I had 2 projects in USEC ako, yung vaccine self-sufficiency project at yung molecular labs. Yung molecular labs, hindi makaya ni Secretary Ona noon. Sabi niya, ang mahal niyan. Kasi pandemic preparedness plan namin yun eh. Ni Celia Carlos, siya yung head ng laboratory pa noon. Ngayon, director na siya ng RITM. Pinasok ko yun, pero natakot si Secretary Ona kasi masyadong mahal. Yun naman pala kailangan gagamitin natin. Imagine kung na-build namin ngayon yun. Tapos yung pangalawa, yung vaccine self-sufficiency. Production plant ng bakuna dito sa Pilipinas, dun sa RITM namin lalagay. Hindi na tuloy. Oo, hindi ito. Hindi pa, pero meron pa kaming isang napondohan. DOST ang nagpondo nito. Na gamit ngayon, yung Philippine Genome Center. Nung araw, ang dami nagrereklamo doon. Ba't ka bibili ng mga equipment na genome sequencing? Ang mamahal niyan. Pagkain at healthcare ang kailangan ng tao. O ngayon, nagagamit natin. Nakakapag-biosurveillance tayo. Alam natin kung ano yung mga variants. So, we need to have a longer vision. I hope our leaders and future leaders will be more long-sighted about health and development, health and economics. Kasi nga, dapat talaga ang tingin natin is beyond an election. If you want to develop the health system, we should look farther. And crisis like this shows us how bad we've done with the health system.
Brad, going back to yung suggestion, no? Going back to the suggestion of or the proposal of Sec Pernia, and in the light of this development now, so much spikes, so much infections. I think we're running an average of between 8,000 to 15,000 daily.
Right.
Are we able now, in the light of that vision, are we now able to apply that or to be able to cope up with
very
our facilities
difficult,
now?
USEC, it's so difficult because, di ba sabi ko kanina, 54% were private and 46% are public. Pero yung public, because they are public, pinilit natin silang mag 50% COVID dapat tanggapin nila. So 50% of those 46% nilagay natin for COVID. Hindi ho 50% ang nag-ooperate, 70% punong-puno. So nalampasan na yung maximum. Sa private, 20% pa lang. Hindi sila talaga nag-i-increase above 20%. Itong nabigyan sila ng bayad ng PhilHealth, medyo titingnan namin, pero may kuda pa rin. Teka, wala kaming nurse eh. Mag-hire pa, bibili pa kami equipment. So, nakita mo, sa private sector talaga, it's profit. It's profit-driven. And I don't blame them kasi nga, magsasara yung ospital pag nalugi siya. The hospital has to remain viable because it's private sector-led. So, in which case, the government, si Pernia is right, the government needs to invest more in public sector hospitals. Para pag nagka-pandemya kang kagaya nito at may pila ng mga taong nagpapakonfine doon mo dadalhin sa public hospitals. So, ayan, naghahabol tayo. DPWH is building modular hospitals. Red Cross is building field hospitals. yung mga facilities, tinatayo natin in different open land areas. So, naghahabol tayo. In fact, last year, March, I will tell you, I will reveal this to you, I wrote Secretary Duque. I asked him, Secretary Duque, maybe you can approve already one of the build projects, which is the PGH Diliman project of President Danilo Concepcion. I told him, let's build it now. It's 700 beds. If no one or no contractor can build it in 2 weeks, let's get China to help us to build it in 2 weeks because they built 1,000 bed hospitals in 2 weeks, in 10 days, di ba? Parang wala dead ma Hindi ako naasagot So anyway, ngayon na-present na sa NEDA yung yung PGH Diliman, pero I think the mode is a PPP mode. So private sector na naman ang paggagastusin natin para diyan.
Brad Ted, there was this meeting with the president, no? And I think Secretary Galvez made a presentation, and he mentioned about these modular hospitals,
Yes,
or rooms,
modular
room.
hospital. So we
Yes,
have built.
and he appreciates very much the DPWH. But be that as it may, sir, in real terms, has this facilities really able to put a dent on our needs?
Oo naman.
Vis-a-vis the increase in the abrupt increase in the spikes in the infections and probably the seriousness which was caused by these variants. Would that be able to catch up with our where we were lagging behind in terms of facilities?
Well, luckily, meron tayong isang facility. It's a 110-bed modular hospital that was built way back in November. November natin to, pero nung November, di ba, bumaba na mga kaso. So in fact, nag-close na ng mga ward yung mga public hospital kasi wala nang COVID cases. So akala nga namin hindi na magagamit yung 110-bed hospital diyan sa Quezon Institute. So suddenly, nung nagkaroon tayo nitong March ng outbreak at puno lahat ng emergency room at may namamatay sa mga tent, tinapos ng DPWH ang hospital na yan. So it's 110 beds, meron siyang 20-bed ICU. Pero yung tao, dun pa rin natin kinuha sa Jose Reyes. From already a very busy hospital, we extracted some of their people to run it there. So it's operating now, but I don't know kung ma-operate mo siya fully because our next problem is it's easy to build the infrastructure, but it's hard to get the healthcare workers kasi pagod na, may nagre-resign, may nagkakasakit, may na-expose. So it's doon tayo ngayon thin in the healthcare sector. Last week, itong week na to, inaugurate sila with DOT Secretary dyan sa Luneta in front of the Quirino Grandstand. They will build a 300-bed modular hospital again. Diyan sa 300 kasama yata.
Saan po ito, Ted?
Yung harap ng Quirino Grandstand, di ba may parang area doon where, so doon nila lalagay yung modular hospital. So it's twice the size or 3 times the size of what was built in QI. So sabi ni Sec Villar, parang 1 month kaya tapusin yon. So that should help. Pero ako, ang ano ko dyan, ang duda ko dyan, saan tayo kukuha ng tao, ng nurse, ng doktor? I think another one that they built and expanded are modular hospitals in the National Center for Mental Health. Di ba malaki yung ating mental health? So nag-build din ng DPWH ng facility para naman ito sa mild and moderate para ma-accommodate. So kita mo ang surge ang gumagawa ay public sector talaga. So there's very little but ang choice ng tao to be admitted is a private hospital. So again, meron na naman tayong problema doon. Kasi magtanong ka ng every individual, gusto niya sa private hospital siya. Tapos pipila siya sa tent at maghihintay siya doon hanggang mamatay siya para makakuha siya ng kama sa private hospital. Ayaw nilang papunta doon sa public hospital. Kasi nga, these are Filipinos, usually in the middle class, they're willing to pay para ma-admit. So nakikita mo na naman, konting-konti yung private beds, doon nagpapa-admit ang choice ng ating mga mamamayan. And this is because of issues on quality of care. Kasi syempre ang private sector ang binebenta, quality of care yan.
Doc Ted, naku, napakaraming pupuntahan ito at I am sure this will not be the first and last time na tayo mag-uusap. Kaya lang medyo maigsi yata ang amin na schedule for this show, no? So maraming salamat sa inyo. Would you have, at least for now, some closing statement for this interview?
Walang closing statement ko sa mga nanonood dito sa kapihan dito ni Jing at ni Ado. Coffee Clutch, sa Coffee Clutch ay sumunod tayo doon sa ating tinatawag na minimum public health standards. Mask, hugas, iwas, at huwag magpunta sa mga mass gathering event yung maraming tao. Airborne po ngayon ang COVID-19. At pag kayo ay na-schedule for bakuna, pwede po ba magpabakuna tayo? Yun lang, Jin. Yun lang, Ado.
Okay, sige po.
Thank you very much.
Undersecretary Ted and Vice President of the UP system. Very brilliant doctor. So marami pong salamat. Thank you so much for gracing our maiden show. And we look forward in guesting you once more or many times more, should I say. Kulang na kulang yung panahon natin. I would have wanted to ask a few more questions. However, we're overtaken by time. So I'll give it to you to Ado.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, pagbabalik po ng programa namin ay merong konting pagbabago. Magkakaroon po tayo ng isang bagong co-host, si Jing. At ang magandang balita po ito, siya po ay isang professional host at saka isang public speaker, TV and radio personality. At beauty queen din po, no, sa Miss World and Miss Earth. Ang hindi alam ng karamihan, she's also a first lieutenant in the Philippine Army Reserve Command and an entrepreneur and a very young philanthropist. No? Sa pagbabalik po ng programang ito, makakadaupang palad ninyo si zbsaldua. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Ted, and wishing you good luck and keep safe always. Thank you. Magandang umaga muli. This is your host, former Congressman Jing Paras. And with me now in our program, our maiden program, is ZB or Z Saldua. She is a professional host and public speaker, beauty queen, and an officer of the Philippine Army. Can you beat that? And of course, she's an entrepreneur and a philanthropist. So I give you Z. Just call her Z.
Mahaba kasi yung pangalan ko, sir.
Oo nga, mahaba. Yes.
Thank you so much for having me. Napaka-exciting naman that it is the first episode ever and I get to be a part of it.
Well, today, we had earlier Dr. Teddyherbosa, one of our renowned doctors in the country. But equally, we have with us also Dr. Tonyleachon. Dr. Tony, a very well-known professional, was a former special advisor to the National Task Force against COVID-19 and an independent director of PhilHealth. He is now heading the Kiluzang Contra COVID or KOFFEE and was a medical director of Unilever and Pfizer. A medical board top-notcher and headed many specialty organizations. A renowned cardiologist with clinic at the Manila Doctors Hospital. Now he is the most sought-after resource person on COVID-19. Good morning, Doc Tony, my dear friend.
Good morning, USEC Jing, my good friend, a brother of my dad. Hi Z, magandang umaga. Magandang umaga.
Hi, good morning. It's really great to have you on the show. Actually, marami siyempre nakakaalam ng pangalan mo or nakarinig ng pangalan mo, lalo na sa recent happenings during COVID-19 when it first emerged. And right now, I think you took a step down from being a part of the IATF, but you're still continuing your advocacy to share more information about COVID-19. And we just wanted to ask, kasi meron din po kayong proposed na 7-point plan of action to hasten solution to slow down COVID-19 surge in the country. Could you share with us that plan?
Well, basically, it's dependent on the trust of the government, and it's anchored on the scientific approach. Of course, at that time, there was a need really for the lockdown, but I don't think the lockdown will be the solution right now in the midst of crisis when there are a lot of cases, number one. Number two, you have an overwhelmed healthcare system. So I would rather revise that. That was at the time, the 7-point plan was actually proposed during the time of the second surge. Kasi during the second surge kasi, like last year, when you have so much cases right now, it would be difficult because of the economic depression. So last year, when I was with Dr. Teddyherbosa, when we were starting it, we were on lockdown for almost 4 months. And when they reopened the economy, together with a variant, nagkaroon tayo ng first surge. And the first surge, about 7,000, the medical community asked for a timeout. And just to give you a historical perspective, USEC and Z, and that led to a downward trajectory and a plateauing even in the midst of a an onslaught of typhoons and then going into the holiday season. And then we were surprised that even during the Nazareno, flattened ang curve, but something went haywire. I'm just speaking right now as a truth teller and as an objective person, perhaps outside of the government, but an independent director. All my life, I've been independent. And I don't mince my words right now because it would not help right now stonewalling information for the sake of the public. So, nangyari nun, they ignored the coming of the variant. So, if you will Google, I alerted them and I raised the red flag that there were variants coming from UK in January, and on February 11, the South African variant. Now, if they will not impose travel restrictions, like last year na nagkamali tayo, dapat earlier natin binlock ang Chinese noon. 2 weeks delayed tayo noon eh. When the rest of the world nag-block na. Because China, self-lockdown itself, din ang pinaka-effective eh. And then, one of the things na nagkamali ang government is that hindi na napansin that slowly nag-creep up ang cases. They proposed to the president modified community quarantine, yung new normal na. But they were not looking at their numbers. The economic managers were not looking at the numbers. So may variance ka, increasing ang cases mo, tapos limited ang supply mo. And they, started right now proposing some ridiculous measures like opening the cinemas and then allowing 10 to 15 kids to go to the malls when hindi ka pa nakakapag face-to-face. That's really ridiculous. Buti na lang, so through series of tweets, sabi ko, it's a suicide going into the MGCQ. So on March 1, the president vetoed and overruled the IATF decision na hindi muna tayo dapat. So we stayed in the GCQ. And with God's help, tama ang naging decision ng presidente. Kasi after 3 days, tumaas na yung ating cases from 5,000 hanggang to a high of 15,000. And we're hovering right now sa cases natin na 8,000 to 10,000 a day. And then we're averaging 200 deaths per day na dapat zero. Our positivity rate ang dapat normal based on the World Health Organization less than 5%. We're right now 17% or nearly 20%. Ang ibig sabihin yan, USEC is for every 5 patients na testingin natin, positive ang isa, ganun kadami yan. And then ang testing natin dati 30,000. It's a good thing because I keep on pushing na dapat 50,000 to 100,000. And then ang nangyari, sinunod na yan, pero ibang strategy natin ngayon. The 7 point plan natin noon, pasay na siya in the midst of crisis, and I have a very nice solution to the problem to solve this. Sorry Zia, ang proposal ko nung dati kasi during the time na nag 15,000 tayo was a lockdown of the ECQ. Yun ang una kong sabi. Kasi ang fundamental principle sa pandemic to slow down the virus. Pag walang malalandingan ang virus, mamamatay yan eh. So you need to lock down. Siyempre, allergic ang economic managers niyan. So, nagtatalo. Ang number 2 niyan is to ramp up the testings. Alam mo, USEC, hindi nila na-analyze, and even Secretary Dizon, hindi niya na-realize ang definition ng mass testings. Ang sabi niya, it's impossible to test the whole population. Hindi naman ang ibig sabihin yun. The IMF said that a mass testing is defined as 10 to 20% of the population. So, ibig sabihin 10 to 20 million for 1 year. Very dismal and anemic yung ating ginawa. We only had 8% for the entire year or 8 million. Ang testing is pivotal sa pagsagot yan. Ginagawa in other countries yan, libre. You know why? Like ako ngayon, nasa hospital ako sa Manila Doctors. I cannot make a diagnosis kung wala kang testings. Hindi pwedeng salitaan lang eh. So pag na-test mo ang patient right away, masesegregate mo ang negative that will go to work. Yung positive, i-isolate mo, i-contact tracings mo. Kaya tayo naglalabo-labo, pumapasok ang mga tao without them knowing whether asymptomatic or symptomatic. Ngayon, hindi nila alam. They don't crunch the data. They don't analyze. They just announce it every 4 o'clock. Na ang new cases are coming from 20 years old hanggang 40 years old, yung essential workers. At ang namamatay ay 50 years old to 8 years old. So, wala nag-a-analyze na, sige, papasukin yung essential workers. But they don't test them. They don't give them face shield for free. they don't arm them with mask, saan naman bibili yung mga yan? So pasok ng pasok yan, infecting the workforce. Pag uwi ng bahay, infecting their mothers and parents and dad. So nangyari, nagkaroon ng sakit ang mga tao, dami ngayon na-admit sa ospital. So dapat, ang tirada niyan, you decrease the number of cases na nanggagaling sa essential workers so that hindi magkasakit yung vulnerable segment, that is the A2, the senior citizen, and those with comorbid condition, the A3. Kaya hindi nila na-analyze yan. Nagulat na lang sila, eto na yung cases natin at namamatay na sa bahay. Because they don't have a strategy, walang plano. Walang plano. So, that time, sabi ko, yan, ramping up the testings, mag-contact tracings tayo. During the hearing, na-invited ako din sa Congress. Hindi na nga ako sumipot kasi sinabi ni Mayor Magalong, our good friend, wala tayong testing. 1:3 lang. Ang tagal na yan. Ang isolation and quarantine natin in the midst of crisis, gagawa lang tayo ng modular hospital, 110. 10,000 ang cases natin. Saan tayo makakagawa ng isolation and quarantine? God made the world nga in 7 days. We cannot make a hospital in 7 days. Dapat yan, noon pa natin inisip yan . Or we actually transform hotels or big stadium like yung ginagawa ng SMX para sa ganun. Kaya ang solutions ngayon nagbabago. Parang basketball yan . Pasay na yung kung gagawin natin yung mga yun . So sa ngayon, ang problem, wala sila ring checklist. So sorry USEC Jing, I know you're from the government. And ang gusto ko lang naman makatulong. There are 6 things that the government should do and ask themselves every time. Is the viral transmission controlled? It is not, because the numbers would show every day na maraming cases. Number 2, are the healthcare capacities are in place right now, like testing, tracing? No, kulang ang testings natin. We should do 50 to 100,000 to solve these cases like other countries. Are the isolation and quarantine facilities in place? No, you don't have to build. Magastos yan . Ang ginawa sa China, transform the big stadium into hospitals kagad para mas mabilis. Yan. Creative . Number 3, are the healthcare workers taken care of? Hindi. Ang mga sweldo nadidelay. Hindi nabibigyan ng Department of Health ng incentives. Kaya nga umaalis sa mga doctors natin . We're the biggest exporters of nurses and doctors to the world . Ang nangyayari, kawawa naman, they seek greener pasture because they're overburdened with work and they're underpaid. Nakakaawa ang ating mga healthcare workers . And they die. Napapagod din sila. 4th, are the workplaces right now taken care of? Hindi . Ang schools natin, hindi pa natin nabubukas. 5, we're so open to the world . Samantalang binan tayo ng Inglaterra because of the variant. Hong Kong, binan tayo. 2 days ago, the US is not allowing their citizens to go to the Philippines. Pero tayo, we welcome all the variants . Hindi naman masama yun. But we relax on the swabs and the quarantine . At ang panghuli, ang public health education natin, pangit . Ang daming misinformation, fake news na dapat naayos na natin by actually addressing that. So, sa madalit sabi, even intelligent persons are not engaged and educated and empowered, and that would result. But later on in the discussion, sasabihin niyo sa akin as a physician, how can we end the pandemic? And I have a solution for that. And I'm sorry, Z, that the 7-point plan, pasay siya. 3 weeks ago ko siya sinulat. And apparently, ang nasusunod lang ay yung mass testings. But the other one, hindi pa. But we can discuss a new plan. We can discuss a new plan, USEC and Z, so that moving forward, we can contribute to the country by this particular new plan.
Doc, well said yung mga proposed solutions mo. But these are just mere words, no? What I'd like to ask you is that the implementing arm of the government, which advised the president is the IATF. Now, if by any chance your solutions are really valid ones, in the light of the IATF, do you think they've been there for so long already? You think it's about time that the IATF maybe should be revamped, or should the president should probably inject new blood, or probably try to come up with experts maybe in the medical field. Ang dalawa lang kasing nakikita ko dito, the medical solutions as well as the economic solution. So, do you think the IATF is armed with that kind of expertise that would address the medical, at the same time address the economic? Because these two things should go hand in hand. No, you lock down, but you cannot just lock down just like that. You also have to take into consideration the lives, of the people. The nakakain yan. The government cannot provide all the necessary financial support. We have very limited. Kung ang isang tao nagsisweldo ng 15,000, kasi ang minimum natin nasa 5 or 600. Pero the maximum that a person, kung i-dole out mo, is probably 5,000 to 6,000. So talagang ang laki ng disparity. So the people has to work, has to earn a living. We cannot just depend on. So if your course of action should be given weight, are the people that are supposed to implement that really equipped? And these are the IATF, because they're the ones that should bring these things to the president, no?
Okay.
Kung mali naman yung binibigay sa ating Pangulo, hindi naman tama din yung ipapalaganap ng mga implementation.
Okay.
So,
USEC,
let me ask you, kasi you were there before.
Yeah, USEC. USEC, I'd like to apologize for my candid answers, and I hope you don't mind if I will be candid. Okay. Well, I was asked to resign because of my differences in policies with Secretary Duque and Secretary Roque. I was 1 week after the imposition of the executive order. I received a call from the palace around 8 p.m. while having dinner. And to my great surprise, this is from the office of the president. And you were summoned to help the National Task Force Advisor, Secretary Galvez, to help. So I jumped with joy kasi sabi sa akin ng dad ko, your Brad, if you were given the opportunity to help the country in whatever form, then you have to help the country. And because of that, siguro mga 2 or 3 days ago, I made a plea sa Facebook, doon namatay ang mga doctors, 40 of them, na there should be a national command center. So I worked my way through that and then made a presentation sa IATF. And yun ang sinunod nila during that time. Ngayon, I think right now, the IATF has lost its relevance sa tingin ko. Kasi kung 1 year na at tayo right now ay in shambles and worse than last year. We're worse this year than last year because we have a wider base. We will reach 1 million at the end of the month. Alam mo ba ang failure ng response ng pandemic, Z and USEC? When you have an overwhelmed healthcare system, pagka wala nang mapuntahan ng mga pasyente at namamatay sila sa bahay, that is an overwhelmed healthcare system. So therefore, last February, when I was asked sa Channel 5 whether the IATF should be abolished, I said yes. Because ang tingin ko, yung IATF kasi, Ang leader nun, si Secretary Duque, overwork siya. Siya na ang IATF leader. Kung mag-meeting yan, 8 hours. Siya ka pa ang Secretary of Health. Chairman of the board ka ng PhilHealth, pati sa'yo ang FDA. So what happened to PhilHealth? Nagkaroon ng 15 billion scam kasi hindi ka, ikaw ang chairman of the board. Department of Health, ang nag-a-announce na lang si Secretary USEC Bergere. And you're supposed to lead that as a leader. So IATF, nag-meeting ka. So, ibig sabihin, masyadong overwork eh. Ang dapat ginawa niyan is streamline and then create another team that will work on the policies and then infuse a lot of doctors there. So, kung hindi naman i-abolish, then transform that to a team that will work on the vaccines eh. Ang nangyari kasi in the other countries kaya successful, they cannot do the science approach like ginagawa ng Australia at New Zealand. They can do that because they are disciplined countries. But for countries na namamatay sabay-sabay, alam mong ginawa ng US at Israel, sinabayan nila by bakuna. Ang problema, somebody dropped the ball. When Babes Romualdez and Secretary Teddy Boy Locsin ay nag-negotiate noon July, ang nangyari noon, hindi pinalmalamahan yung non-disclosure agreement na dapat pinirmahan mo kagad so that nakapagpatira ka ng vaccine na dapat magawa 6 months. January, we could have gotten the 10 million doses, good for about half of the NCR na dapat may herd immunity ka pa July pa. So therefore, kung hindi naiisip yan, at that time, you know naman, natanggal ako noon. Kaya lang hindi nila naisip na I worked for Pfizer for 2 decades and retired na ako doon. Then I could have probably linked them up. Kasi, you know, they're military generals pero hindi sila doktor eh. Hindi rin naman nila alam mag-launch ng produkto. So, and then, hindi naman nila alam kung anong clinical trials na dapat gawin. Hindi mo alam kung saan ka pupusta. Kung nandun ako noon, I could have linked them with the local Pfizer and then to the global. And then, nakapagpatira sana tayo. Wala tayong problema ngayon. Kulang na kulang tayo sa bakuna. Yan ang ginawa ng Israel. Yan ang solution. Ang Israel, 10 million yung population nila. Tayo, NCR, 12 million. So, ginawa nila, nagpatira pa sila July pa ng bakuna using the diplomatic talks. So, ang ginawa nila, in order nila, napakaraming bakuna. And then, pag bakuna nila, ngayon, wala na silang problema kasi 50% of the population vaccinated na in 3 months' time. So, dapat ang strategy natin is different. So, ang tanong mo sa akin whether to abolish or not, siguro, I will be kinder to them because they're working so hard. Ang problema lang, wala lang silang restructuring of their strategy. They should actually be transforming the IATF into a vaccine launch team and put in persons who work in the pharmaceutical industry, epidemiologists, mathematicians, logistics, and distribution. Kasi hindi naman nila alam gawin ito eh. I think they need to put...
Doc, you're saying that the IATF, there will be new injections of people who had expertise. Now that the concentration is on the vaccination, there should be people who should be expert in that field because yun na po ang direction.
Ang galing. Tama po yun.
So dapat yun ang pagtutuusan ng pansin supposed to be ngayon.
I think also to add to that, we also need, like what you said, experts in economy, but not in the sense where they are looking towards making money. It's more on the sense on their expertise in logistics. They can help in distribution also with the vaccine. Because if you work with the medical field, and you get the people who are really very knowledgeable in disseminating information, you have something like Lazada who is able to really reach millions and millions of Filipinos in just a matter of months online. You also have people in the business sector or the economic sector where they are very knowledgeable when it comes to crisis management, when it comes to people management, and these are skills that we also need that will also partner with the medical field. And it becomes a really great partnership if you bring these two together.
Kasi nagbabago na yung nagbabago na yung
Plano.
approach eh.
Yeah,
Plano
alam mo ginawa USEC Z, very nice comments of yours. Ang ginawa ni Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, ni-recruit niya yung the best and the brightest. Ang dami palang Israeli na sa Harvard graduate and MIT. So kinuha lahat niya yung kanyang mga health experts, economists, logistics, and then form a team. And then ang ginawa niya, si Benjamin Netanyahu talk with the Pfizer CEO na may Jewish blood. And then sabi niya, o-order kami ngayon. Alam mo pati, in-overprice pa ng Israel ang singil. They say $30 lang per dose. Ang sabi niya, we will give you $45. Basta ibibigay niyo sa amin solo lahat yan hanggang 2022. So ibig sabihin, ba't mo ginawa yan, tinanong? Sabi ko, okay na kami magbayad ng extra na $15 kasi mas mahal ang lockdown eh. Now, you talk with our great mga team. Alam mo, naging effective. Tapos, ang target nila, alam mo kasi a goal without a timeline is a dream eh. Open-ended tayo eh. Ang sabi ng Israel, we will do this in 3 months. So they started vaccinating in January. Last week, open na sila because 50% ng bakuna. So ang ibig sabihin, you have to restructure the IATF into a team na dapat a composite team of experts na may knowledge in pharmaceutical medicine, clinical, medical, logistics, distribution, marketing and sales, procurement and everything. So ngayon, nakikita mo, Sinovac lang na order natin, Astra lang. Tapos, hindi pa tayo nakakakuha ng Pfizer, Moderna, and all. Because Secretary Galvez has no basic knowledge on pharmaceutical medicine and procurement eh. Kaya hindi tayo mako-order eh. And we're not using the diplomatic ties natin in trying to do this. Kasi if I were the president, bubulungan ko lang siya, Mr. President, why don't you lift up the form and then talk with President Joe Biden? Because we're blood brothers eh. We're problems in the Western Philippine Sea. And I'm sure, pag tumawag ka dyan, can you spare us with Pfizer and Moderna, mga 20 million doses para man lang sa NCR namin, which is the business epicenter, which is about 50 to 70%, so that we can open the economy and the academic institutions. Matatapos na yung bakuna nila by May eh. And they will celebrate the 4th of July for their herd immunity. So dapat, kung ngayon natin o-orderin yan, the President talks with Vladimir Putin, with Xi Jinping. But we know they don't have the best vaccines in the world because Pfizer and Moderna, 95% ang efficacy rate and will address the variants eh. So what we have right now are variants na okay, but they have lower efficacy rate than the American vaccines. That's why Americans, kahit marami ang cases, tinan mo ngayon ng American rin ngayon. So that is the strategy. But if the president will not listen to this kind of strategy, ganyan na lang tayo. We will never succeed because in this kind of crisis, vaccines will end the pandemic. Nagawa na natin lahat masking and everything has standards. Hindi tayo makaka-reopen na economy as long as the virus is there and out. So I know yung ginawa ng Israel. Sinacrifice mo nila for 3 months yung economy. And then they vaccinated the population 24/7, mobilizing the doctors and the army. Walang tulugan. And they were able to do that. Ngayon, dapat ganito ang pagpaplano natin. We cannot go on and ganito. Ang sinasabi ko dyan na USEC, may makapagbulong lang sa presidente, call for a summit and try to think of a blueprint and then ito ang gagawin natin and assign people, delegated authority. Ang nakita ko lang, yung IATF ngayon, na-decimate eh. Nagkasakit si Secretary Anyo for 3 months. Secretary Lorenzana, nagkasakit. Si Secretary Ramon Lopez, nagka-COVID. Si Harry Roque, nagka-COVID. Namatay si Danny Lim, na MMDA chair. Si Martin Andanar, nagkasakit. 50% ng IATF niya nagkasakit eh. So you need a fresh legs and fresh minds in order to help the country. You need that eh. Even in basketball, nakikita mo if if the team is weakened, nagdadagdag ka, nag-i-infuse ka ng talents with different opinions and different ideas right now. Kasi we are in a crisis right now eh. We are the number 1 in Asia for the wrong reasons eh. We are the number 1 in new cases and we're the dead last na nag-start ng bakuna. This is not the time right now to stonewall eh. This is the time to inspire the people eh. Anong nangyayari, USEC? Nangyayari, Z? Wala eh. You wake up in the morning thinking about the problem and you're not inspired anymore because there's no plan. The plan is really passé. We need to think about. Ang daming TOIM awardee, ang daming mga
They are not being
Proactive.
utilized. They are not being invited to share their expertise, in other words.
Actually, I agree because maraming magagaling talaga na Pinoy. Like, we have one of the brightest minds and there are so many countries that are benefiting from our talents. Samantalong tayo sa Pilipinas, we are unable to maximize it. And I feel like it's such a shame that we can't because we do have some
In
of the
fact,
best.
the talents are being shown in the group chat.
Yeah.
You know, sa mga dami-daming group chats, ang daming nagbibigay ng kanilang magagandang ideas.
Ay, ang gagaling sa group
ang
chat.
daming magagaling, ha?
Ang
But
gagaling.
hanggang doon na lang.
Because
And I think this is the very reason that since we don't have the availability of vaccines, people are now trying to engage in other form to cover up for the vaccines like ivermectin, lianhua kinguin, itong liporlibab or something like that, you know, and just to be psychologically secured, you know, prophylaxis and all these things, when in fact if there was enough vaccine, people would not have gone into thinking of finding an alternative.
Yeah.
No?
That's
Because right now
correct.
they're relying on each other.
That's correct.
They're relying on the group chats and all.
Alam mo, ang galing
Pero
ng
Doc, tingin mo, of course the president has a big trust in Mr. Galvez, no? Secretary Galvez. As a matter of fact, he is the vaccine czar, no? Well, if you look at his background, he was the commander during the siege of Marawi. But looking at the present situation, ano pa talagang nakikita? Kasi ang taong bayan gusto malaman, no? From your point of view, Doc, are we able to put a dent in terms of availing of the vaccines? Kasi parang 5 million pa lang and we have 110 million eh. So, sinasabi it will be coming. But how true is this as far as for the ordinary people? Tapos yung iba pa sinasabi na ayaw namin yung Sputnik, ayaw namin yung Sinovac. A lot of people are waiting. Pangalawa, na-apply na yung first dose. Sinasabi naman ngayon, kailan darating yung second dose? So, there's a lot of confusion. So, coming from your, you have access to information, being there, no, in your position. Ano
alam mo, in fairness,
natin, para po sa ating mga kababayan, ano pong nakikita natin prospect for the vaccine?
alam nyo, sa totoo lang, I love Secretary Galvez kahit sumama ang loob niya sa akin. Kasi he sided with Secretary Roque and Secretary Duque. Sino naman tayo? Advisor lang tayo. I even love Secretary Anyo and Delphine Lorenzana. They are good persons and they're good generals, but they need help, experts to guide them. Ang nakita ko lang personally is that from the very start na nag-vaccine SARS siya, dapat nag-hire na kagad siya ng composite team. So at that time, ang una niyang ginawa is arrange a tripartite agreement with Joey Concepcion and the private sector. Dapat yun, bago tayo pinlano muna natin kung anong kukunin natin bakuna. And you should start with the best and the best vaccines in the world. Dapat ganon. Kasi babayaran din naman natin eh. Ako, I would have gotten pa rin Pfizer and Moderna. Dahil, siyempre, di ba, pag bumili ka ng gamit, gusto mo yung pinakamagaling. Eh sila yung first na na-approve in the world, December 10. Ang Pfizer, Moderna, December 17. So dapat, pinursu pa rin ni Ambassador Babes and ni Secretary Teddy Boy Locsin by asking the President to talk with President-elect Joe Biden. And then ang susunod dyan na vaccine na maganda is the AstraZeneca. Kasi made in UK yan eh. Ganun ako pumili po eh. I'm not brand conscious, but alam naman natin, ang track record ng Pfizer being the number 1 company in the world and in America, siya ang gumawa ng penicillin, Lipitor. Doon ka pupunta, pupusta ka sa Llamado pag tataya ka sa karera. Hindi ka tataya doon sa Dihado. So, ang nangyari niyan, dahil nag-late tayo, nag-queue up ngayon, na-stuck tayo to the Chinese vaccines na they even started during the time na unregistered pa. I have nothing against the Chinese vaccine, but they have no record in pharmaceutical medicine. Yan ang una dyan eh. Number 2, wala ring track record ang Gamaleya sa pharmaceutical medicine. So how can you trust them? Samantalang ang Pfizer and Astra, 100 years na yan eh. During World War II, sila nga naka-imbento ng penicillin to treat us eh. So dapat pinursu natin yun so that we can actually achieve herd immunity right away. But we did not pursue it eh. Nag-late tayo sa queuing up eh. So ang nangyari, una natin inaproban ng Pfizer, but we did not negotiate dun sa global sa New York eh. And then dapat nakapag-usap tayo with the Secretary of State na unahin tayo. May chance pa naman nun eh. Para July, makukuha natin eh. Pero ang nangyari, we prefer the Chinese vaccines because of our friendship with the...
Ginamit natin yung Mutual Defense Treaty sa vaccine.
Exactly. Exactly.
Kasi this is actually not in defense of aggression in war, but in defense of health. Di ba? Baka by analogy.
Opo, tama po yun eh.
Kasi the relation of the US and the Philippines is still intact pa naman eh.
Ang nangyari kasi, nag-occupy sila ng Western Philippine Seas, na-blackmail tayo with the Sinovac na kailangan orderin natin. Yan naman ang basa ko as a private citizen. So, hindi ka ngayon makipag-away sa China because hindi tayo bibigyan ng Sinovac. Pero kung sana, may multiple options tayo, hindi tayo naiipit sa Sinovac. Kung kinuha natin ng Pfizer, kinuha natin ng Moderna, kinuha natin ng Johnson & Johnson and these products. So kahit magtampo sa atin ng China, meron tayong fallback plan. Eh ngayon, we're stuck with the Sinovac and we are hostage right now. Kung hindi maginda ang relationship natin with the WPS, nangyari, mawawalan tayo. Nakasalalay pa naman sa bakuna ang herd immunity to end the pandemic. So we have to have multiple options.
Just to add to that also, because there is a concern right now, even with the youth, ang nangyayari is, nung unang-unang gusto-gusto talaga natin ng vaccine. It's so ironic that America has the capacity to do so. Kaya lang ang dami sa kanila ang anti-vax. Dito naman tayo sa Pilipinas, we want the vaccine, but because sobrang tagal na, meron na ngayong nagda-doubt. Meron na ngayon na nag-o-option na I don't want to take the vaccine anymore. Kasi ang dami kong naririnig na ibang, it's either the wait and see or there's already misinformation so much. So
Kasi ang nangyari, we did not actually put sana dun sa safe and efficacious. Kaya kita mo sa Amerika, mga kaklase ko, nainggit ako sa Facebook. Nakikita ko sila, nag-enjoy na sila doon.
Yes. A lot of my friends, they have second doses already.
Yes.
Tsaka wala na nga silang mask eh. Tapos wala silang mga side effects eh. Kasi
Doc, we don't have much time, no? We don't have much time. I just have one last question before we end. Siguro we'll have a second session on this, no? Kasi ang dami pa naming gustong matanong sa iyo.
Ang gagaling din yung magtanong eh.
But last question po yung in lieu of the vaccine, people are now going to the V line on the ivermectin, no? Ano pong masasabi mo po dito? Dahil there are pros and cons, no? There are doctors, in fact, magkakaiba ang nadi-divide ngayon ang mga doctors in terms of the application. Some are saying, no, you don't take that, don't take this. There are also those who are actually naglalakas ng loob na ibibigay talaga either as prophylaxis or as treatment. Ano pong, from your point of view, you're an expert, you've been there for a long time, ano pong tingin mo sa ivermectin?
Sabihin ko sa iyo, USEC Ted, my dad was a lawyer. You are a lawyer. I'm a law-abiding citizen. Pag unregistered yan sa US FDA, unregistered dito sa atin, morally and legally, you cannot do that kahit merong good intentions ka. So, you need, ba't pa natin binigyan ng power, the highest regulatory agency, in order to assess efficacy and safety kung hindi natin susundin yan? We are a society of men of obeying rules and regulation. We cannot just say na effective to without the approval of the regulatory agency. Ngayon, if we put right now yung law into the hands of the politicians and other persons, ba't pa natin ginawang FDA? Di buwagin na natin ng FDA. Doon tayo pumunta. Ako, I really don't mind later on kung ma-approve siya. But I cannot legally and morally accept prescribing a medication na on regulatory documents ay hindi pa napuprove yung efficacy and safety. Ang level of evidence should be randomized controlled trial. Ang ibig sabihin, ginagamit yung gamot versus placebo. You cannot say, oh, effective to, pero 10 naman ang ginamit mo. The lowest level of evidence is an expert opinion. The highest level of evidence ay mga 40,000 studies na inapruban ng regulatory agency. Ngayon, pag ginawa natin ito, it's a great disservice to the country. Kasi kung magka-side effect yan, sino ang morally responsible and legally responsible for the deaths of these people? So, let us not rush into judgment and pressure right now the regulatory agency because alam mo naman, being a politician, alam mo yun, merong mga conflict of interest yan eh. Pero are the politicians right now the right persons to push a product na hindi sila nagdoktor? We have to leave it to the medical societies na nagagawa ng guidelines at to the FDA. Ngayon, kung after processing, napatunayang okay naman yung ivermectin, I will abide, no? But sa Hippocratic Oath, alam mo ba ang una namin sinusumpaan? First, do no harm. Even if the product is actually effective, the most important is safety. A drug is not pulled out in the market because of lack of efficacy. It's about safety. And first, do no harm. So, I have nothing against my colleagues. Mahal ko yung mga medical colleagues ko. Pero at this point in time, I'm calling for sobriety. Let's wait for the studies ongoing na naman, malapit na matapos. And then if the FDA approves that, then we can use the ivermectin. Let us not use the Congress and the Senate to pressure the FDA. Kasi the FDA might be pressured to approve it tapos to the detriment of the public. Mali naman po yun.
I think the best thing is that the focus and efforts will be more on the vaccine rather looking for alternatives at this point, because it's not like the vaccine is not available. It's available na. We just need to take advantage of finding ways to get the vaccine here rather than looking elsewhere. Kasi ang dami din naghahanap ng alternatives. So,
I agree, Z.
Okay. So, thank you so much, Doc Tony.
Thank you. This is our first episode, but we hope that we can
We
see
hope
you.
I'm
we did
USEC, I enjoyed discussing with you. And we've been friends, and Z is very competent in asking the right questions.
Thank you.
Well, she's not only good in very articulate, but good in the beauty industry. So to speak.
USEC,
Okay.
I'm very glad na startan mo tong
Yes.
program na to.
Marami
Because
kasing we originally have this Sovereign PH online. It's a news online. And there's a clamor that we should also come out, you know,
Maganda
live.
kasi yung mix mo, Yusek eh. Kasi abogado po kayo, lawmaker kayo po dati, tapos nagtrabaho po kayo sa gobyerno. And I think that particular, assets, napaka-importante in a discussion kasi medyo you can see the holistic picture on a helicopter view of the situation. So congratulations on your maiden program, and I hope to see you again in future episodes. And
Thank you,
glad to
thank
meet
you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Doc Tony.
Thank you so
Mabuhay po
much.
kayo. Keep safe.
Ikaw din.
Thank you so much once again to
Yes.
Dr. Tonyleachon, and thank you for all of our viewers who are watching here with us today. And we just hope that you can continue to join us with all of our episodes because gusto natin talaga ipamahagi sa inyo ang mga importanteng solusyon, importanteng issues ngayon sa ating bayan. And if you have any other concerns that you feel that we should bring up, go ahead and mention it in the comment section because we will definitely want to hear from you.
Okay, and good morning once more. And our co-host is joining us, Ado. And Ado, can you make your parting words?
Yeah, well, we've learned from USEC Ted and Tony, right? Today a lot of things. And pero napansin ko, mas maraming question na nabuksan kaysa answer. So, ipurso natin ito.
Yes, yes.
Once more. And with feeling.
Yes.
Coffee Clutch.
Yes. So thank you again, and hopefully that you can continue to comment, continue to support, like, and share this video. And sa lahat ng gustong tumuloy ang kanilang suporta, we just want you to continue to share it with your friends, and also all of the information that we're bringing here are coming from very credible professionals and people who are really involved in the current issues of the country.
Yeah, and if you have comments, just send us to our chat, our link or whatsoever, which you will see in our
description
program. Yeah. Okay, magandang umaga po. Good morning.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.